Hello and welcome to Our Stories, Our Minds. This is a show courtesy of ICAS Kenya and Total Wellness International. Here we get to hear real life issues on mental health. We will also get to meet and hear real life stories from people who have been there and have overcome. We will also get expert guidance on topics related to the same. Today our topic is rape, sexual violence and sexual abuse. We will hear from a lady who has been there, who has overcome, and she will share her story with us. Welcome and introduce yourself.
My name is James Amwendi Ower. I am currently a communication assistant, but also I work hand in hand with World Bank in creating projects around gender-based violence issues. And I am just glad to be here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you and welcome for coming. Now, tell us what happened.
I got raped when I was 19. It was a setup where I knew people who were in the setup. My drink was spiked. I took it and I blacked out. I woke up the next morning with my jumpsuit on, and I really knew what had happened because then I was a virgin. I knew no man in that aspect. I didn't go to hospital, really. I just woke up and left. I called my friend who picked me and I left. This happened in November of 2014, and I could not really tell anyone because of the fear of judgment and stigma. Even my own parents, who I would tell my movement every single day. So in December of 2014, I just went home as usual. We had our Christmas thing, but I was very resentful towards my dad. I remember very well him telling my mom that he's worried about my reactions and what I'm doing. And my mother said, she's still a teenager. It's that time, the period when they're discovering themselves. What they really didn't know is I was going through a moment of, I really don't know what happened. I left home in 2015 and went back to school, but I started sinking into depression because I was trying to get answers as to what happened to me. Then I got into depression, like serious depression. And I remember my friend telling a friend of mine what had happened. But in the process, I really hadn't opened up to my parents. So when I started sinking into depression, my father was told. And they were told that Jane has been portraying such a character. She's not talking to people. She's not herself anymore. My parents came to Nairobi only to be told the story by my friend, told that I got raped. I remember that is the time that my mom asked the doctor to do tests because they wanted to know STD, STI, HIV, all these things, because that is the first thing that you should go to the doctor first when all these things happen. So they did a test, they ran all the tests on me. Everything came out negative aside from my pregnancy test, which came out positive. And I remember at that time I was still a child. I was 19. I hadn't even finished doing teenage yet. And the first option they asked me is whether to get rid of the child or to keep the child. For me, the option was getting rid of the child. I wasn't ready to have a child at that time. But my dad told me we are going to keep the child. I have to carry my child to term. That was one of the things that is the decision that actually made me think so much about a lot of things, because I was a child carrying a child. You have been building your reputation for years. You're the one who preaches to people how they should wait till they're married. Now here you are, you're pregnant, but even how you conceived your child is not the ideal way of conceiving a child. So I stopped school. I actually stopped campus at that point and went back home to stay with my parents. But during that period, they helped me in getting therapy because I actually needed it. Because here I am, I've been raped. I'm carrying a child who is a result of that rape. And I need to love this child. And I also need to love myself despite and in spite of everything that I went through. I need to learn how to forgive myself and all that. So I carried my child to term. going through therapy, and I gave birth in September 7th, on September 7th, 2015. That was it for me, because I remember giving birth to this child and I really didn't have an idea where to start from. But I loved him at that point. The period when I went back home after the hospital, I also went through postpartum depression, because I didn't really understand the kid. At the same time, I was going through a lot of emotions within me. But thank God, again, I have parents who would read through these things, because my child would cry and I'd cry. Sometimes the child would cry and I'd walk away. Not because I hate him, it's because I really don't understand what it is that I have to do with this baby. But I grew in love with him in the process. I left my child at home. That was in 2016. And I went back to school, but not the same university. I went to USIU. My main agenda was to build walls, because initially I had friends who betrayed my trust when I got raped. And now I have a child. I really don't want to go to the same environment, fear of stigma and all these things. So I went to USIU. People don't know me there. People don't know my story. And I promised myself that I wouldn't make friends. I'd build walls. I didn't care. I just wanted to go to school, finish, get my degree, leave. But in USIU, there are, during orientations, we are put in groups. And during one of the groups, she's very close to me. She's called Lydia. She asked me, why is it that you are not interacting with other people? I remember that she did. I told her, all these kids are straight from high school. I am a continuing student. I have been to a university before. I'm just here to complete what it is that I was doing. I was like, which university? And I mentioned the university. And she asked me, she prompted me and asked me, why is it that you're here? And I pulled her to the side and I told her, these are issues that I can only talk to a counselor directly. But honestly speaking, I didn't want anyone to know anything about me. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people looking at me a certain way. So in my stay in USIU, when I was still in USIU, guys, my mom kept on telling me, oh, people are saying this and this about you, about your child. I remember every man I was hanging out with was pointed at and told, this is the father to the child. And yet, you understand? And I think I got to a breaking point. Because I was trying to heal. I was quiet. I didn't want to hear. Just because people don't know me, I thought I wouldn't be going through all these emotions that I'm allowed to go through either way. So one night I decided to blog. I actually just went on WordPress, signed in, logged in, put my details, everything, and blogged and shared my story. And the moment I shared my story, it was 3 a.m. I woke up in the morning, the next day it had been shared to a lot of groups in my university. Some of my lecturers were like, is this the same girl? Most people are calling me. My dad, I woke up to my dad calling me and telling me, Jens, so you decided to tell the world your story. And I told him it was a point of healing for me, because I was keeping all these things inside. You guys knew what had happened, but no one knew. And everyone was judging me and judging my parents for protecting me for all this while. And no one actually knew what had happened. So for me, it was just a way of getting, like being free at the end of the day. And when my dad talked to me like that, I realized that him too, he was going through a moment. He also needed healing. He also needed to go through therapy to actually understand it wasn't the daughter's fault. And my choice of talking about my story was just to let people know that, these things happen. Considering the fact that I was going through therapy, I was going through all these other things. And even when I went to school, the lady, Lydia, gave me someone else to talk to. And they walked with me from the first day I was there. And they realized that I was going through a moment of denial and acceptance at the same time. You know, sometimes you accept and then you come back and be like, this didn't happen to me. So yeah, it has been a journey. It still is a journey. The healing process is a process that is something that you take gradually every single day. There are days that I feel low. There are days that I ask myself questions like, what if this didn't happen? Would I be living a normal life? Would I be talking to people about, I feel like I'm low. I feel someone would be telling me, hey, you're depressed, or this and this is happening to you. So sometimes I ask myself, what if I wasn't raped? What if I wasn't over trusting at that point, to a point I gave people access to my life that much? Would I be hurt? Some statements people tell me sometimes, and I'm like, okay, why are you saying this to me? And I won't lie to anyone, but I always sit down and wonder, what would have happened differently? Should I have trusted people? Should I have just taken a back seat and been myself? But again, I realize self-blame will never take me anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. And that all those feelings are justified because you are going through a process of loss, betrayal. But let's talk about betrayal. You said that the incident happened because of people you knew.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
The person who raped me was someone who was a friend. And initially I didn't know. But I knew later on. I'm told, research has it, that most of the people who are raped by the people who know them. And for me, it was a person who I trusted, I talked to. This is someone who was a friend. And I expected him to protect me rather than harm me. But he harmed me, didn't protect me in the process. And the fact that after that, he felt it in his power or in his place to just keep quiet about it, because I was looking for answers. Remember, I was hanging out with you and a couple of other people. Why couldn't you just, why couldn't you protect me? So the betrayal part came from that, and it actually messed me up. It really did mess me up, because after that, I am a very friendly person, very talkative. I make friends everywhere I go. But after that, it was very hard for me to make friends. Up until now, it's very hard. Trusting is not, sometimes trusting is a thing of the past for me, because for me to trust you, it takes me a while. So yeah, that is where the betrayal came in, because I felt like you should have protected me. Even if you wanted me, I don't care. You should have told me, I like you, this and this, but that doesn't warrant you to rape me. You get? So, and I had the choice. You can ask me for these things. I had the choice. He should have given me that choice to choose whether or not to sleep with him. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to imagine what you're going through at that time. But you say you woke up and you found yourself with your clothes torn. What was going through your mind at that point?
It registered to me. I think it just registered because I was a virgin. As in, I tell people, if it were not for that moment, I think I would have gone into marriage a virgin still. I was a virgin, and I knew, because I had pain. And I'm like, this is not normal. And the fact that I had spottings of blood and everything, and I was like, I have never had sex with anyone, and I'm in pain. So that is when I knew, okay, this is what has happened. Because definitely, Kwani, you're going to tie my clothes, and what is the aim at the end of the day? So I knew what had happened. Yeah.
So what were you thinking at that time, and how are you feeling?
I was really confused. And at that point, I wanted to get out of there and leave. I won't lie to you. I just wanted to up and go take a shower, hoping that the shower would relieve me, which didn't happen. And I just left, because at that point, I think there was a point of you don't believe that has happened. You just want to leave, get to the space, and then it registers the moment you get to a place and you're like, wow, this has actually happened. Yeah. So it was a moment of confusion. I really didn't know what to think. But at the same time, I understood that I had been raped. And I didn't want to go to hospital. I just wanted, honestly, I just wanted to up and go. Yeah.
Is it because at that point being confused and you're denying it?
Yes.
Going to a hospital would be like affirming the truth that you didn't want to believe?
Plus again, I had heard of stories of people being questioned too much about the situation and everything. So I think I didn't go because of that too. Yeah.
Okay. And then you also didn't want to share with anyone?
Yeah, I didn't want to share with anyone. I just wanted to fight it on my own. I wanted this war to be between myself and myself and I, just myself. Yeah.
So later on, even now, you still have issues with relating to people and trust?
Yeah, I do have issues when it comes to relating to people and trust. But it's something that I'm gradually working on. It's something that is outgrowing pole. And it's because sometimes you want to give someone your utmost trust. You want to be like, this one is not going to hurt me. But you replay everything that has happened and you're like, it's not worth it. So I'd rather be on my own. Yeah.
Okay. And when you're talking of your trust being broken and difficulty in relating and it has affected, have you ever had relations with a man now that you have grown? And
yeah. Yes, I have had relations with men, and it hasn't been smooth sailing. My first boyfriend, after the incident, we were friends. We were very good friends. But when it came to the point of intimacy, that is where my antennas just went up. Because I remember very well that he came home one day, and in the process of lovemaking and all these things, I just hit a man. I just blacked out. And I think for me at that point, it just registered rape, violence, and all these things. And at that point, I just decided, you know what, I can't. Because I remember I hit him so hard and he left. And the next thing he did is call my therapist. I was like, call your client. Something is happening. And when my therapist called me, I explained to her, and she told me that was a sign of PTSD, and I needed to go for more therapy to get more help. So yeah, I even broke another one the other day. So I've had relations. It's just that I think when it comes to the next step, when it comes to the step of getting intimate and all that, I think that is where I drew the line. It feels nice being in a relationship, but it's been tricky for me. But I'm working towards actually having a meaningful relationship. Yes.
It's always a trigger.
Yes, it's a trigger. And I tend to just step back when we are getting to that point. Because again, I never feel like it's like I need to explain myself to the man who is in my life. But the last relationship I was in, I felt the need of actually just telling him that this is what I've been through, this is what I've gone through, and this is how I relate to men now. And if you don't mind, can we just take things pole? And when I stepped out of the relationship, it was solely to protect him. It was solely to make sure that I am okay. And at some point, I was even thinking of going for therapy together, but it's something that he wasn't willing to do. So I took a step back. So we just ended things, though we are friends. Yeah.
Speaking of therapy, tell me, you are going into depression. I know you didn't even know it was depression.
Yeah.
Then how did you get into therapy?
Because I needed help. Like, I needed to understand. There's a pain that comes with being raped. There's a feeling of worthlessness that comes with that, because you just feel like you are a tool of use, as in, for lack of a better term. And that is how I felt. I felt like I was worthless. I felt like I was just something that is there. And I wanted to understand why someone felt that it was in their right to just defile me when they did. And the pain, I needed to let go of it. It was something that sometimes you couldn't even quantify. I couldn't even quantify. So when I started therapy, it was solely to get healing, to start a healing process, to understand myself, to love myself again. But in the process, I realized I was also battling with myself, because you're talking about, I want to heal, but the next time you say, it was my fault. You get? I'll come tell you this is what I'm going through. But when I go back home, I still say, it was my fault. So I had to start therapy to actually accept. Even the process of accepting, yes, it happened. I had to actually go through therapy to later on say that, I was actually raped. And I didn't want to see myself also as a victim. At the end of the day, I wanted this to, in as much as I was a victim then, I wanted to see myself as a survivor. Because surviving, it means living through it, seeing the byproduct, which is my son, and at the end of the day, still standing strong and accomplishing whatever it is that I wanted to accomplish with my life. So, yeah.
Okay, so when you went into therapy, and I know sexual abuse, we give it so many terms before you accept the way you're going. What kind of terms were you attaching to the rape incident before you actually acknowledge that it is rape and accepted?
I think I just said I got raped. As in, I knew I was raped. As in, I knew I was raped. And I didn't sugarcoat it. It's just that in my head, I wasn't accepting it. And I couldn't utter it to everyone that I was raped. No.
Okay.
But I knew I was raped.
It was too heavy a term?
Yeah, because it's just something that I ever thought would happen to me. And knowing how the society works, it's, what were you putting on? Were you drunk? And these other things. So I didn't want to go through that. And so I didn't talk about it up until I was like, I'm done. Let me say it as it is.
And I know many people, both sexes, the female and the male, are going through sexual abuse right now in different forms. And normally, like you say, you blamed yourself. What do you think you, at that time, within that space when you're going through this denial, what do you think you did that contributed to the rape?
Honestly, looking at it now, there's nothing I did. Because if you are my friend, you are entitled to my trust. I trust you. And I don't expect you to hurt me, in as much as we'll hurt each other. But I don't expect you to go to that extent. And for me, looking at it, even dressing, surely, I wasn't putting on something suggestive. And even if it was something suggestive, that doesn't give anyone a leeway to rape a woman, you get. So for me, there's nothing that I did, and that there's nothing that I would have done differently. It's just that I was in a setup, a very trusting setup for me, and I didn't expect anything to happen. So honestly, looking at it right now, because then I was thinking that, or I shouldn't have trusted these guys, or I should not have had friends. I should not have gone to the house. I shouldn't have done this. There's nothing that I would have done differently. Yeah.
And when you're talking of your parents, they were your sole support system?
To date. Yeah, I love those guys. Yes.
But I know also of people, like you say, we don't want to say they're victims because the incident happened. Most of it is beyond their control. But when they survive, we want to think of them as survivors. And they don't have support systems. What can you tell them?
One thing I have to say is you have to trust someone, in as much as I'm not the biggest fan of trusting people right now. your parents, I've had cases of parents telling their kids, you're the one who took yourself there. You should not have been doing this. You should stop drinking. That is why these things happen to you. But there is an affirmation that comes from your surrounding, your support system, your parents, your friends, your siblings, that makes you feel like I can go through this. And even if that is not there, trust me, believe me, there's one person out there, be it at work, be it at school, be it wherever it is that you go, church, that when you talk to them, these people are willing to hold your hand. I've always believed that there's a lot of good in people out there. And when these guys hold your hand, trust me, they're the ones who will still channel you back to your parents, and they'll even talk to your parents. And that is something that I've always believed in. And what I'll tell the guy, the support, the ideal support system that is supposed to be there, like the parents and the siblings and all these other relatives who are supposed to be holding your hand, is you kill these people. Then you kill them. You kill them, kabisa, because they are looking at you. By the time I'm coming to tell you, Mom, I got raped, or Mom, such a person did this and this to me, it's because I'm looking at you as my last resort at that time. I just need you to hug me, hold me, tell me everything is going to be okay. Even if you don't know what else you do, maybe even cry with me for that time. And if I don't get that from you, where do you expect this person to get help from? Because it actually starts from home. And I always say, if my parents didn't hold me down at that time, I wouldn't be this person seated here right now. Because the assurance, the affirmation, the daily assurance that they would tell me, Mama, this happened. And my mom used to say something like, we can't cry over spilled milk. It's happened. We have to pick ourselves up. Picking up, that dusting yourself is going to be a process, but we are willing to go through it. Imagine if they wouldn't have told me that.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you talked about going into depression. Tell us about that.
Hey, I realized I was going through depression because I stopped really interacting with people. I had a routine. I'd leave my house, go to class, come back home, sleep. Go to class, wake up, go to class, come back home, sleep. I'm a fan of music. I'm a huge fan of music. I sing and all these things. I stopped going to where music was. I even stopped going to church. I stopped doing a lot of things that I loved. Because honestly, at that point, I just wanted to be alone. And it got to a point where even my surrounding didn't matter. I am a neat freak. You just come to my house, you'd find things everywhere. And one time, I think my friend came home and was like, "Hey, what is really happening?" So at that point, I realized I was going through something. And even when I was going through therapy, my counselor would ask me, "Jens, what is it that you love that you no longer do?" And I tell them, I love music, I love singing, I love poetry, and I can no longer write. I'm not even in that space of writing poetry or doing music, something that I love. And she told me, "You're actually depressed." And I never thought that I'd go through that. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of depression, you lost interest in the things you loved. You isolated yourself. You're always constantly worried. And again, the fear. How did the fear affect your behavior and your whole interaction?
I could no longer go to clubs because I felt like if I order a drink, those people are going to spike it. I could no longer walk at night. It was a whole thing because I had trust issues with everything. And at night, even if a man is following me, I would be ready to run. Or it was fight or flight, and it was always fight. But the flight came often than the fight. And I felt like everyone was out to get me. Even if I was here, I just feel like, this man is out to get me. So it just painted men in a whole different perspective for me. Even the things that they were not going to do, I actually felt like they were going to do. So, yeah.
Okay. Then you talked of stigma
Yeah.
and discrimination, the society, the workplace. Tell us about that.
The stigma comes in when the society starts looking at you as the cause of the rape. Because the first question, even the cops ask you, is, what were you doing? Why were you there? Why were you dressed like that? Why were you drinking? They are very quick to judge the victim than ask themselves, what was the person who did the act? What were they thinking? So the society is very harsh. Even now, when people are openly talking about these issues, the society is very harsh to actually victims of rape or any other form of GBV. And that is something that is not supposed to be there. We are out here as activists trying to encourage people to talk, trying to encourage people to go report these issues when they happen to them. But when they get to where they're supposed to be reporting, there's no one there to embrace them and tell them it's going to be okay. And the first thing you're asked is, why were you there? What were you doing? That should not be the case. It should be, where were you? Who is this guy? Do you know the guy? You know, rather than blaming me for whatever it is that has happened to me. And that is what society is doing. Literally, even now, they are still doing that. Because somebody the other day told me, when I told them, they asked me how I got my kid, and I told them I conceived my child through a rape. The first thing he told me was, you know, you're very pretty. I can't blame the person who raped you. So if I'm pretty, that calls for rape. Unless I'm very confused about this whole thing. So yeah.
So they kind of rationalize the whole rape?
Yeah.
Okay. And that, how does that make you feel?
Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes I just feel like these people are stupid individuals. Because I look at it and I'm wondering, Because me being pretty, me being curvy, me putting on a short dress, all these things are to make me happy, feel good about myself. But if you're using that as a leeway to rape me, there's something really wrong with you, honestly. You should sit down and ask, why is it that when I see so and so, the first thing that comes into my head is sex or raping this person? Because someone asked me, are you sure you didn't want it? How? I was already drugged. How was I sure that I didn't want it? So all these things just make me angry. But at the same time, I sit down and say that these people should actually call themselves for meetings. Because
they should go for therapy.
They actually should go for therapy.
Now let's talk about, you said later on you knew the perpetrator. How did that happen?
It was funny because he called me. He actually called me. This life. Anyway, he called me. And I remember I had started school. I had started USIU. And when he called me, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm the one who did this and that. Have you ever felt hurt again, all over again? And I'm just there like, you are my friend. Why? Why would you do this? And at that point, I actually just called my dad and told my dad, hey, I've received a call from this number, and they're saying they're the ones who raped me. And for me, it was, I think for us, we had already started just moving on, learning how to forgive whoever it is. But I think when I knew who it was, I felt really bad. I felt really hurt. And at that point, I really didn't know what to do up until I saw them, because it started becoming a stalker game. He came, he knew my classes. He knew I had a class that ended at 9 in the night, and I'd live and hear, oh, jeans. And I'm like, I know the voice. Standing, you see him. And he became a stalker, and that is where I started fearing for myself, because here I am trying to forgive you and let you go. And one time he comes, he actually pulls me back and tells me, I want to see my son. Who is your son? As far as I'm concerned, that one, the father I myself don't know, because that one is being sorted on a different level. Mimi, I'm not even sorting him. So it was really, really hard for me, because you're taking a step forward, and here you are again taking like 100 steps behind because of one individual. And it actually made me fear a lot, because where I used to stay and my university is literally a 10-minute walk. And it would just make me feel very insecure. I'd walk looking around. This is a person who actually knew my schedule. This one knew I'd go to church on Sunday, and at noon I'd go to TRM for shopping, because that was my trend. And up until date, I feel like he had someone tracking me or knew my movements, because it was bad. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And meeting the perpetrator before you healed just kind of triggered the whole
process?
Yeah,
it triggered the whole thing. I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions for him, which I will still ask. And I feel like nowadays I'm just there, like, if I meet this guy, I can ask a lot of questions. So it triggered the whole thing again. Yeah.
So let's, now that you're talking, you're sharing your story, you're trying to be out there to encourage people. These people who are afraid, the children, the women who are married but they're being abused, having sex without their consent, how would you like encourage them? How would you want to tell them to deal with this and maybe make a stop to it? Do they have the power?
They have the power. It's funny, because even yesterday I was talking to my mom about the same thing. You always have the power. Number one, for kids who are being molested in their homes by their fathers and all these things, and their mothers are the ones who are telling them, oh, your dad can't do such a thing, your uncle can't do such a thing, your brother can't do such a thing. This kid is hurting. Number one, the child doesn't have a voice. You are the voice. And if already you're silencing the voice by not speaking out, you're hurting this child, because this character will replicate when they grow older. Because right now they're being hurt. You don't know what this kid will do. You just need to listen to your child, because they don't have a voice. You as a parent, you are the voice. There's nothing about, oh, that is your uncle, they can't do such a thing. If a child tells you, uncle touched me, deal with that uncle, because I don't think a child has such an active imagination to actually lie about something. Number two, for women who are going through this in their marriages, Aki, there's no better way to say this, just get out. Because the more you stay, the more you get hurt, the more you resent people, you resent yourself, you don't like yourself. The next thing we know, you are in news, you're shooting someone, you're stabbing someone, or you are the one who has killed yourself. There's no two way about it. Get out. There are rescue centers nowadays. Walk into one. If you can't, there are people who can hold it down for you and just guide you through the right way. There's no two way about it. There's no reason for you to stay in a place where you're getting hurt every single day. And I know it might be hard. People are like, I have a child, I have this and that. But there's no two way about it. Get out. Seek help. Seek help. As in, get help. Nowadays, even hospitals have gender desks. Walk there and tell them this and this is happening. Let no one silence you. It might be hard. Not everyone has the courage to speak like I do, but the moment you mention it to one person, trust me, you'll find the strength to mention it to the second person, and that strength will allow you live. Yes.
Let's talk a bit about the society. We're talking of the society in general, for both men and women. And you are telling people to talk. But the society is telling the women that they should just hold on. These things are normal. It's become...
they've normalized.
Yes, it's become like part of life. So much so that if you're not abused, then you start questioning yourself. Are you normal? And the men, if you talk, you're told you're weak. So and you hear telling everyone to talk?
Now, that is a trick question. Now, this is the thing. I will start with the men, because men are the ones who actually are going through the most right now. Women, we've been given a voice from the national level to community to wherever. Women are right now talking. But for the men are hurting. So much so that they resort to weird things. Drinking, people are sex addicts out here because of the things that they are going through. But I'll say this, the way people say adui wa mwanamke ni mwanamke mwenyewe, adui wa mwanaume ni mwanaume mwenyewe. Because the moment a man comes and says, I was raped, even us as women will go, how? Remember, there's consent. A man can consent and not consent at the same time. And if it happened without his consent,
it's still rape.
It's still rape. So we should stop. This thing should not be an 80-20 type of things. Let's give everyone a voice. Let's just give them a voice. Yes, you're saying, I'm telling people to talk, and the society is telling women not to talk. Trust me, women right now are the loudest. Right now, no one can do anything to your daughter, and the neighbor is quiet. You get? The neighbor will come and tell you, hey, we suspect A, B, C, D is happening. And it's not the man who is coming to tell you. It's the woman. What I'm saying is, let no one take away your voice. Let no one take away your voice. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get hurt. And there's no need, no one deserves no one deserves to go through pain. No one deserves to go through anger or blaming themselves because of whatever it is that has happened, being beaten, being raped. Let people just come out and talk. And normally I say, let us have these conversations. The moment it starts from me and you, it goes to other people. Because in these conversations, you actually understand why these people are doing certain things. And sometimes I say, let men take charge of these conversations. Because the majority of the perpetrators are men. And when they sit down, they ask, hey, what is happening to us men? Why is it that women are complaining about this? Imagine the solutions will better come from them. Us women, we are very emotive. We will go sit and we'll be like, men are this, men are that, men are, without sitting down and understanding. Yes, someone can rape you, but you actually have to understand the psychology behind him raping you. What is it that he went through when he was young? What happened? What is making him see women the way he's seeing women? You see, so at the end of the day, we must have these conversations from a young age. When our kids are still young, when they're teenagers, let them talk about it. Let them understand that yes, rape happens. Every other form of GBV happens. Then when you pick it up from there, let the young people talk. Now the youths, let them talk, and the generation of our mothers and our fathers, let them also talk. Yes, and then find solutions.
So finally, just one more question. You had said that you did not seek help, you did not go to a hospital, but you had said in hospitals there are gender desks. So what would you tell somebody who's going through rape or sexual abuse? What would you tell them? What are the first steps they need to take?
The first step, after okay, for rape, if you're raped, please go to hospital. Please go to hospital. I was just one amongst the lucky ones who didn't contract diseases. These things happen. I only had a baby who I love. But please go to hospital. The first thing, don't even beat venye huko. Go to the hospital. Let them run a rape kit on you. Let them do everything. And I know our justice system is just messed up, but there's always that one person who will listen to you, by the way. So do not at any time just go. The number 2, find someone to talk to. For people who are going through rape, find someone to talk to. Because if I'm still going through therapy and I'm still healing and the healing does not stop, every day is a trigger. Every day. Sometimes it's the shape of the head of a person, and they're like, hey, that shape looks like of the person who did this and this to me. Trust me, every single day is a trigger. But the choice of moving on, that is what matters. So find someone to talk to. Whoever it is that you talk to will actually help you. For people who are being beaten, all these things, GBV, trust me, there's one person who's very ready to listen. You just have to find the person. Let no one take your voice away. Let nobody take. No one has that right. As much as society will make us feel like we don't have a voice, no. You will always have that one person who will listen to you. That is most important. And to the society, let's move on, man. It's time. It's actually time for people to not normalize these things. We have normalized rape to a point it appears on TV today, tomorrow again. That is not how society should move. This is not how we should be living. Or someone has been killed because they were raped. This is not how society is supposed to be moving. Let us move forward. Let us find a way of healing a generation that is already messed up and find a way of actually making sure that these things don't happen from the word go. Like, as we continue moving forward, yes.
Okay, thank you, James. And you are correct, because these people are taking control away from you.
Yeah.
They just want to put you down. They just want to make sure that you are worthless, you are helpless. But in real sense, are you really helpless?
No, I'm not.
Are you worthless?
No.
Okay, so you are taking back control. Okay, thank you so much for allowing us into your space and also sharing your story. I'm hoping someone else out there will come and say they need help.
Yeah.
That's all for today. My name is Lillian. Thank you so much. Till next time.